Big Boy's
Big
Neighborhood.
Boy.
All righty now. Beautiful day in the neighborhood, ladies and gentlemen. We've been waiting on this one. London B in the neighborhood. First off, welcome to the neighborhood, my love.
Why, thank you. How you guys doing?
We're doing well.
Great.
My introduction to you, of course, was Rhythm and Flow.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I thought, for one, I was waiting on Rhythm and Flow. And I went to the finale, right?
Yes, you did.
I went to the finale, but I left before they did the whole, finale finalizing who won. So when I had a chance to watch Rhythm and Flow, I watched it pretty much not knowing who was going to win, which was better for me throughout the whole season.
Oh, that's
because
dope.
I left. But the one thing, and this isn't because you're here, London, the one thing is, like, the night that I watched the performances, you look professional.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I enjoyed about the entire season is, there's some people, you get these shows and we've been watching these kind of singing competitions for years. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, we have.
And some of the best of the singing competition is the elimination process. People get up there, oh, you can't rap, you can't sing, and that's what's funny to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I enjoy the most. But when you saw Rhythm and Flow, you saw people that got weeded out quick. I could see which ones wasn't going to make it from the giddy up. And I love that you had people like Chance and Cardi and T.I. and then also a lot of people that came in and kind of sat down that they weeded the process out. You know what I'm saying?
did.
And then by the time you got to where you were at, it was real A game.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
How did
sir.
you first grab onto Rhythm and Flow?
Rhythm and Flow contacted me. Really, what happened is that year, I just want to talk about the process a little bit. Because I think a lot of times, like, the process.
I'm going to take you to the process.
Yeah, I want to start there so that way we can, like, walk into it.
Because the one thing that I tell people is that when we see people as an introduction, we see from that point and then whatever's in the windshield, the front windshield.
That's it.
And we don't see what's the rear view. And that's why when I talk to people and they're like, oh, that's overnight. I'm like, man, you don't know how long that night was.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Huh.
And then there's outliers and there's 10,000 hours and the performances. And before we get a chance to see London be on stage and we say, oh, she's sharp.
Right.
You had to make sure that you sharpened yourself up.
Absolutely.
When did you first fall in love with music or performing or hip hop, or what brought you to?
Music has always been a part of my life. I was born into it. My mom sang, my grandmother sang, my uncle danced, my father drew. So a lot of it was like super creative. And then my father was a barber. So he owned his own shop at like 17. Yeah, so he's like, it was almost kind of like instant just going into growing up. And I would watch my uncle dance in the living room. He would dance to reggae. So he would just break it down. He started doing funny things. I'm like, he's awesome. And then my dad draws me a picture and I'm like, man, this is the greatest picture ever. And then my grandmother, she's singing. I'm just like, I fell asleep to listening to a lot of her singing. And my mom, she would sing to us. So music was definitely a part of my upbringing. And watching other people do it, I always wanted to perfect myself in the perfection I seen them at.
What did you fall in love with first? Was it just, were you writing?
I was
Did
writing.
you sing first?
I
Did
sung
you?
first.
Right.
That's the beautiful part. Like, literally, I took after my mom and I started to sing first. And then I started to write and I started to get into poetry.
Right.
So before music became like a purpose, it was kind of like I drew, I cut hair, I had so many other different talents. So I'm like, I created clothes. So I had so many other different talents. I had to hone in on one. And singing was the first one I probably focused on. And when I went and I recorded a song called Tonight, I'm like, this is cool, but I didn't have like the confidence in the singing area that like I can sing. And it's funny because I felt like I needed so much. And at the time, I probably didn't need as much as I thought I needed.
Yeah, and you probably listen now like, man, I could have just sung. Listen to everybody now. No,
I'm about to switch it up real quick, okay? But I'm like, I have this beautiful voice, and everybody's like, man, your voice is powerful, but I didn't feel powerful in it.
Right, I hear you.
So that's when I'm like, I'm a rap. Because either way, I just want to say something. I'm like, let me just say something. I'm tapping the mic. 1, 2, check. Is it on?
Hello, turn me up. Turn me up. My headphones.
Okay.
Turn me up my headphones.
Can you hear me? So it was like really, really dope. And I go in the studio one day. And I'm like, man, I want to rap. I said, how do you rap? I asked my engineer. His name was Jack. And I asked Jack, I said, Jack, how do you rap? And he's looking at me like, what you mean, how you rap? You just rap to the beat. So I'm like, well, give me a beat. So he gave me a beat, and which was Go Off. He gave me the beat, Go Off. And I literally went home. And what inspired Go Off was just my journey on trying to become a rapper without knowing anything. So I walked into a meeting with no record sales, no tickets, no nothing. Like, I'm just cute. And
And I got something to say.
Literally.
But let me say it, and you'll understand why
and
I'm
you'll
here.
understand why I'm here. So I walk in there. I said, hey. So I'm like, I want to do this artist thing. He's like, okay. So he starts to present paperwork, and I look at the paperwork, and I'm like, wow, this is a lot. I start getting dizzy. I said, whoa, what is this? And he's like, well, you want to do this thing, right? So this is what I'm investing in you. This is what you have to bring back. And I'm like, investing in me? I'm like, why can't I just like rap with you and we create music? He said, because it doesn't work like that. This is a business. And I said, well, if I'm a part of the business, why the percentages off? Because around that time, that was 50, 60%, 70%, 80% of what I would have even brought to the table before I was even becoming anything. And I'm just like, wow, it just seemed very possessive. It just, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, okay.
Like the numbers
you learned
off.
that from just life.
I just learned that from life.
Yeah.
Yeah, just looking at the paper just didn't look like it looked like me. Because the paper got to look like you. When you look at it, you got to know that you're confident in even what you can bring to that person too. Because it is still a business, and you want to make sure that you are funneling the correct intentions and expectations when you're in business. Because I don't want to look bad over promising something I can't do. But in this, I see myself like in a total different mind space than just looking at papers and signing them. So as I feel like the percentages were too big, but at the time of meeting somebody, you don't have anything to leverage.
Right.
So I understood. So he was like my inspiration. The reason why I explained this story, because he was my inspiration, because he was just like, well, if you don't sign to me, you probably won't get anywhere.
Oh.
Now, and where are you at this time? Are you where's home plate? Is it? Are you in Georgia at that time, or is it people?
I'm in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta at that time. So he said, if we don't collab on this, you probably won't get anywhere. He said, I'm like your only hope.
Wow.
And I said, wow. I said, well, if you're my only hope, and my last stop, I guess I'm gonna get off. That's about it.
Yeah,
I guess I'm gonna get off. So I left, but I was so angry. I went back to the studio and I recorded "Go Off." That was like the inspiration for that. So it was just like, time to go off for all that I want. That was my first song, literally through the inspiration of feeling like I'm just going to, write my own story. You might not see it, but let me make it so vivid that maybe somebody else, maybe you didn't need to help me. Maybe it wasn't divine. Maybe I didn't need to be there at that time, but it taught me a lesson just about myself and what to expect in a business so huge and so profitable.
To respect your own value too at that time.
Yeah.
And how
with
much
no value
of life goes into that? Because there's life lessons. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like you're a mom, correct?
I am.
And how old is your little one?
7.
So you got to be everything.
I gotta
you know what
be
I'm saying?
everything.
You got to be mom. You got to be artist. You got to be friend. You got to be relative. Whatever it may be. And there's a lot of life that goes into that.
It does.
You know what I'm saying? And even more so when it comes to ladies. Like you'll see men, we can go on tour. You know what I'm saying? The queen got the little one. We coming back. We think the bag sometime is enough.
Yes.
But when it's mommy's everything.
Mommy's
You know what I'm
everything.
saying? So how do you not prioritize, but how do you do it all?
I create it around me. So what happens when I can't bring my daughter with me in certain places, I'll let her go to her friend's house. She'll go to her auntie house. Like I always make sure that her space is like normal to her.
Right.
So when I leave, she doesn't almost feel like I'm not, leaving. A lot of times she'll be with my wife. So I have another mother present. It's like two queens kind of like coexisting to make her life still as normal as possible while the transition happens. So a lot of times my daughter if I can't fly her out, I'll have her like with a family member or something where her space is like
village.
secure.
Yeah.
But my daughter's busy. My daughter does gymnastics. She's transitioning from ballerina to gymnastics, so she's busy. Her schedule is pretty tight.
Yeah,
so,
she'll be like, Mom, I can't
love it.
FaceTime right now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not now.
Yeah, I'm like, wow.
Like,
yeah,
Mama,
like,
let me
she
hit you
gets
back.
busy.
Let me hit you back.
No, seriously. She's like, Mom, I'm gonna call you back. And I'm like, oh wow, all right. So yeah, so like her life is kind of like in that like I make her life as normal and as fun as possible. So it's nothing affects her life. She can still grow and be who she is.
Were there ever times, Londynn B, where you just felt like I can't do this, like for whatever the reason, I'm giving up. Either you put your trust in people and people fail you.
Yeah.
The music business isn't what you thought it was going to be.
Yes.
The way that people are. Being a lady and sometimes men not respecting. Like, were there times like that for you?
Times like that are really they're powerful, but they're silent. I'm like a firm believer in, actions speak louder than words. So even a conversation we will have, if it doesn't align with where I'm trying to go, it's okay. Because maybe you're not aligned with where I'm trying to go. So a lot of things aren't taken personal, and I just try to keep my head up because there was a time where I did start to, when I first did Rhythm and Flow was when I almost started to question who I was at that time. Because
Why?
I'm just like, wow. Because like literally you go out there and you're being judged for something you had already made up in your mind that you were great at.
Yeah.
Then somebody comes and like, you know, well, you're great, but you know, and it's like, ah, man, the butt is heavy. It's big. It's like, wow. But.
And you had already kind of been through a lot of that already with just kind of, you know, just
trying
getting on.
it already,
Yeah.
right? And then on top of that, the mind space of your mental as a mom, you can't go home and, you know, pour out those same feelings because your child needs to be loved.
Right.
And your job needs to run. And your wife needs communication. And your friends need to go out on the weekend. And your grandma want her couch fixed. Like, you know, like everybody got something that they needed Londynn B for at that time. So to securely be able to go through that process was a lot of, it was a lonely road because it was a lot of moments where you literally had to take a boundary for yourself.
And definitely way more than a TV show.
And way more than a TV show because there's so many lessons on and off camera. It's almost like life adjusting to where you had seen yourself. You're now in this moment. What do you do? But I prayed for it so long. At this point, even if I'm not ready, I got to get ready because this is an opportunity you might not see again.
Did you have those moments where it felt like you were almost on? You know what I'm saying? Before Rhythm and Flow, where it was like, oh, I'm talking with such and such. Oh, I'm about to put this out. Like
so many times, I'm like, yeah, this is gonna work. But then you can almost kind of feel when it's not working.
Right.
So I've learned just not to force it. Because the first time you go through it, it almost hurts your feelings because you almost think it's about your feelings. Then it's like when you realize it's not about your feelings, it's like, oh, wow, then what is it about? Then when you find out what it's really about, it's like, okay, cool. You can get over that. There's so many other things that like women have to focus on in general, and the expectation for us is so high that they almost don't allow us like to even, because when we speak, it's emotion. It's never just a communication that we can have because a lot of people don't want to communicate.
Right.
So when you challenge somebody's communication, it's like challenging their authority. Now there's an issue. So if to kind of prevent those issues from happening, if I can't speak to you in a manner where we can communicate, then I'd rather not communicate at all. And it doesn't mean that we don't have to communicate. Doesn't mean you're a bad person because I don't have to impose anything on you. You don't have to impose anything on me. Don't give me any of your expectations. I won't give you any of mine. And let's proceed to be colleagues because this industry is so small. Like, it's about time that we just try to redevelop a different way of doing things because I just don't think women are okay being in the back anymore. Like, because if you think of the history, not to, you know, bore you, big boy, with all this women talk, but if you think of the history.
My strongest influencers are women.
You know what I'm saying?
The strongest thing in my life.
And I don't think people have
mom.
like taken the history of women further back as they should, because at some point we had to wear dresses because we could not wear pants. There was so many things we just had to do with no real direction on why. So in any situation where we wouldn't wear skirts, or any situation where we wouldn't be at home cleaning or cooking, or any situation where we wouldn't be doing what other people told us to do, it made us everything else but who we are. And actually, women are sent to heal. We're lovers. We're creators. So in this very moment, like, I don't think that there's room to even try to cancel that out, because I think there's a transition that's going to happen regardless.
How do you feel when, without any names, when you see women that try to cancel women out?
And when I see women that try to cancel women out, I love them too, because a lot of women are hurting. A lot of women are hurting because, see, what happens is when we're not getting the love,
and that still could be the
and
puppet master.
And it's still like puppet. But in the same token, what happens when you show another woman love and that woman might not give you that love in return? What you do is just try the best to understand where she's at. Because what happens is women do come back around, even if they are the nastiest to begin with. Because we ain't going to try to sugarcoat it. It can go vice versa. It's not just men that cancel out women. You do have women that cancel out women as well. But, you know, a lot of those women will come back, just like a lot of those men will come back. And the circumstances are the same. The circumstances are the same across the board. But I do think we're getting to a point where we have sat back. That silence has been taken into consideration. We did a lot of studying. We've gotten a lot of knowledge. And we've always had to go the extra mile. So a lot of things we had to learn. We had to be out there and kind of get our feet wet without that direction, because at some point that was all we had. So
and not that there's a place, but, you know, like there's either there's a void, there's a place, there's a structure. Like where do you want to see so-called your place or where you want to be at. And not that there's this person that does this, there's this person that does that. But when you speak of like the material you write, the way that you present your material, like who are you speaking to?
I'm speaking from me to others. Like all my music
kind of who grabs it, huh?
Who grabs it? Because what happens is my music is so authentic because I'm just giving you stories I've been through. I've talked about my relationship with my father and being locked up in my music. I talked about being a mom and the struggles of being a mom. So a lot of my music comes from just me healing myself.
Do you get a lot of people since Rhythm and Flow that come up to you because now we feel like we know you?
Yes.
And you gave us a lot. There were layers
definitely stood out.
That you know, and that's why I don't call that a singing competition show, because we were invested in you guys, in y'all lives. You know what I'm saying? So I know you got to get people that come up to you and they feel like they're very familiar with you.
Well, people walk up to me and cry. People send me gifts. People send me gifts for my daughter. Like literally, like I've gotten so much feedback to the point where that was the confirmation. So, you know, sometimes in that moment of me crying, I'm gonna be real with you, big boy. In that moment of me crying, because I haven't hit on this topic yet. And I know a lot of people ask about it, so I just want to give the answer to it. In the moment of me crying in the season finale, I almost felt like me personally, I didn't do good enough. The first thing I went through is like, because when you're in it, you don't see what everybody else sees. You are determined to do something. So when that determination doesn't look like how you expected it to look, it's like, man, my heart broke into a million pieces. I couldn't hold it. But I'm like, wow, that was the best thing that could ever happen. Because I think when that emotion came out, I was able to be real with myself too. And that was a layer of me that was different from me too. So when I started to see the reactions of the show, and mothers will walk up and they're crying. Like they're crying as they're talking to me, and I'm like, you don't cry.
Right.
You know, like let's cry together. You know, like the kids, the kids go crazy, or the kids love me. Londynn B, like they cried. The kids cried. Like it was like an all-around process where there was no gender, there was no color, there was no division. You know, it was just love, and it was beautiful.
The one thing we did get from Rhythm and Flow as well is that we didn't look at you as like, oh man, she lost.
That's
you know what
it.
I'm saying? Like we
That's
didn't
it.
It never came upon me that you lost. It was like if somebody said, oh well, she didn't win. But like lost, like, and that's why when your name came up for the interview, we were like, hell yeah. You know what I'm saying? But also there's an immediate liking to you. You know what I'm saying? There's a story. I know people, when they see you, they know exactly who you are.
They know exactly why.
You know what I'm saying?
They act like we're related. They act like they're my cousin.
And so that's the energy but you know what? There's smiles bring smiles. And then warmness bring warmness. You know, if somebody were to mad dog you probably mad dog them back. Right. Somebody smile, you smile back. But you feel like you can, from what we saw, we could approach you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and we could approach you.
That's how I wanted it to come off.
Yeah.
Literally. Because when, like, there was no ego in that. It was only just me trying to be better than myself.
Right.
So a lot of the moments had to be
And you weren't
authentic.
hurtful.
I wasn't hurtful. Yeah.
For us to say you did your thing, even in battles and everything, it wasn't like you weren't hurtful. Now, there was one, I won't say any names, where I was like, man, I want this person to go home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And not that you wish any ill will or you want somebody's dream, but the person, to me, went from sugar to shit.
That's it.
You know what I'm
and it
saying?
can happen just that fast. When you don't know who you are and the position that you've been offered has to be authentically you. What happens when cameras come out, people don't know who to be.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who you are before they say lights, camera, action, you probably won't know who you are after. And I think that was that's what prevented, outside of talent too, that's what kind of prevented people from getting to the next level too.
Right.
Like, you know, if we got to be 100% honest, who you are does matter. How you, more or less how you present yourself, but how do you look at you? What are certain things you just won't do?
Were you okay with, when you went and watched it yourself, you were okay with it, huh?
I was okay with it.
Yeah.
I cried again.
Yeah. Aww. And see, there's probably some that wasn't okay with it when they watched it. Like, when they knew that episode was coming on, they probably cringed like,
My favorite episode was my emotional one. The one with Teyana Taylor, that was my favorite episode.
Oh my God, that performance
Y'all
was
killed that too.
I love that was a real moment.
Y'all
and I always tell
killed
people that was a real moment. Like, T
and you know
was
what was
so
dope about
supportive.
that? She didn't carry you. Like, y'all were
your own self.
It was like,
amazing.
two magic stars, boom, in the room. So when I cried, she's like looking at me. She's like, it was just so powerful because T was an influencer at the time, but she almost was kind of like a big sister at the time. It was just like, hey, look, we in the same industry. Let me just give you game real quick. It ain't even about what anybody else thinks in this very moment. I understand you in a competition show, but this song, this moment right here for you is going to be solely about you. Even if you break down on stage, it's okay. Because in that moment, I was already gearing myself up for these emotions and these conversations because I knew I would have to deliver it in a way where they can follow me. But that last line was so powerful. I didn't expect it to catch up to me, and I'm over there trying to catch it. And I'm like, wow, like in that moment, it just, you could feel all the emotion. And she's like taking it in, and she's still performing, and she's looking at me like, hey. She's looking at me across the street like, hey,
y'all dope.
Come on.
Y'all did that.
And it was beautiful, the most authentic.
And we don't understand
ever.
the process sometimes, too. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're asking you to come with your A game at your biggest moment tomorrow.
Literally,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
and the process is way, like, it's not worse, but it's just more so you have less time than people think you actually have to write that rap.
Right.
Like, literally, and memorize it the next day. Like, literally, you have to train yourself to, like, let your body memorize the melodies, and then they come into words. Like, at least that's how, you know, artists think when we trying to memorize something. But literally, we would record all day, and then after recording all day, we would have the next day to write, and then we are filming the very next day.
Yeah, the process. What is the process for you when you got on the show?
The process.
The auditions, and how does that go down?
Man, the process of the auditions, first you go through like probably 60 to 100 people the first time when you do like the Atlanta auditions, and then you go through like another set of auditions, kind of sort of, when you realize the 60 people came from all different which ways.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And we didn't know who, like we started to kind of like see each other on the elevator and was like, yeah, they're part of the show.
Yeah.
Like we started looking for each other,
Ping,
like,
ping, ping.
okay, where is the Rhythm and Flow members? Because they came from everywhere to the point where we kind of like just met up at a Starbucks, and we realized it was like 10 of us in there, and we started walking up to each other like, you're from Rhythm and Flow, and they're like, yeah.
Did you know it's going to be as big as it was? Because we know Netflix,
Man.
but did you know you were going to be a part of something like that?
That was the whole, like, I knew I was going to be a part of something that would have had to be a part of me.
Did you know that Chance, Cardi B, and
We
T.I.
didn't.
were involved?
No,
Okay.
what happened? And that's like another shell shock, because then what people have to realize is you don't get introduced to them prior. So
Right.
yes, you might see T.I., but literally the cypher round was the day you meet all three of them, and they're looking at you like grilled cheese. And I'm like,
Right,
I'm like, man, you guys are really, really bright. I can't see anything. Everybody's jewelry big. I'm like, okay. So then my feet hurt. So I'm like, oh, man. You know, and then the beat starts to speed up. So originally, the original raps that we typically had, the beat had sped up like a second and a half. So literally, I'm finding myself keeping up with the beat. There were so many challenges that you had to be like now creative and like creatively think about how you're going to get through it. So the beat is going really, really fast. I'm like, okay. Then I just start spitting. Here we go. We just gonna take it from here, and we just kept going.
Can't end till I begin.
Can't end till I begin, and that's it. And then when we went to the back, we was able to like let them do their votes. And when we come back in, all you can really do is just wait, because you really don't know like what can happen. All you can do is wait. I know the battle round was like my funnest round. I have fun with that round. Now that I have fun with, because I have fun dressing up.
Now looking at it at the show, obviously if there is a season 2, people are going to flock to it as well. But you had to almost take a leap in being able to say yes, especially not knowing T.I., Cardi, or all these people are attached to it.
Yes.
What was it ultimately that made you say, I'm going to take a chance with this show that's never been done before and I have know
now
nothing
it's proven.
about?
It's proven now.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is when you hear about them, you were already fans. So that's like a step in the door. You're already a fan of Chance, Cardi, and T.I.
But when you like went for the audition, you
when
knew
you
that
go
they
for
were
the-
going to be a part of it?
No, when you
Okay.
when you go for the audition, you only meet T.I.
Okay.
But it's still big enough for you to be like,
Right, yeah.
you know,
You're like, that's T.I.
Even
Okay.
1 to 3, it doesn't matter who
Yeah.
you meet, because we still had Quavo.
Yeah.
So there's still artists in the building that you've probably never
Got
had
it.
that conversation with. So it's still that level of like craziness. And then what happens before I get on is like the crowd is going crazy. They're like booing people. This is real. You have to understand, like, these people will get you off stage really, really fast. So when I ran up stage, I'm like, man, I just hope that they give me the energy I'm giving them. So a lot of times it was like putting my hands in the crowd, just like giving them that love, giving them that energy, let them know we can turn up together. So it was a lot of just like,
and it's already long. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the load in, the this, to that,
like
and you and people,
and
when somebody know that they're judging you.
That's it.
It's already you coming out with people got their arms folded. Like
that's it.
But
that's the worst place to be though when you're already getting judged. You can't. It's an egoless competition. You cannot go up there with an expectation of nobody's telling you about yourself because you have to prepare yourself for people to tell you about yourself.
Yeah.
How was
it is in real life.
How was
Literally.
Chance, T.I. and Cardi B like on and off camera? Like, did you trust their judgment?
I did. I know I spoke to Chance a lot. I spoke to Chance a lot and I spoke to T.I. a lot. And Cardi, even when I would see her, you know, it was always just very pleasant. It was always, you know what I'm saying? Like Cardi has mentioned me in interviews and things like that. So the energy is very clear because at that point, it's just women empowerment. So, you know, we're sticking together just based off that. And then just speaking to Chance and getting his insight on creative wise, it was really, really dope. And T.I. had a lot of knowledge on direction.
Right.
So they kind of served their purpose all in one. You know,
was there ever anything that was said to you that was hurtful?
Man,
if you got to think on it, it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, no, I do have to think on it because a lot of it you can't be hurt by.
Right.
You really can't be hurt by it. So it's really a choice you make when you're getting feedback. Do you want to receive it in that way? Because I'd rather had received their feedback as helpful.
Right.
I don't want it to hurt me because I'm going to assume you're going to give me the best feedback ever. And what doesn't apply, you let it fly.
What was it like when people were going home, when it just started to feel real?
When the battle round, because that was the largest cut.
Yeah.
That was like a whole half went home versus like a few people. And then the first few people that got cut were cut in like groups. So in groups of 4, you know, it's nerve-wracking if all 3 of your group members got like cut. It's like, oh my God, you probably would have reached that reality quicker. But the battle rap was when they put it side by side and realized that your partner might be going home, or that was like surreal for me because it was only 8 people left.
Yeah. The way I will say the way that they did the cuts so fast, it actually kind of bothered me because I was like, I want more and I want more time with you guys. And I was so mad that I didn't get that.
Yeah, some of that was
favorites.
Yeah.
They were
like, give me one more
favorites.
episode.
There were like favorites in that 16. That 16 people started because you started to see the personalities and you started to see the powers. And just on the strength of like, you know, me, Queen, and Beans, and our flawless, you know, Caleb. And
oh my gosh.
Like, it was like when we realized we had to battle guys, we're like, sis, what we gonna do? Like, we sat there for like a whole 2 days trying to figure out how to demolish everything.
Hey, man, now Beans, that's the one who went up against Flawless.
Yes.
Hey, man, and the way that they teamed them up, they didn't. And it's competition.
It is.
She would have went through if she had got with somebody else.
She
you know what
was
I'm saying?
a train to go.
Yeah, man.
These ladies inspired me a lot. Like we did a lot of talking to each other.
Yeah.
So Queen is like my soul sister. That is the love of my life. We talk like every day.
Oh,
And
so
we
you still catch up and
absolutely.
there's something.
Troy and that's my brothers. Troy and Khalid, those are my brothers. Smoke, Flawless. We have a group chat. Like so, it's all
That's
love.
What do you guys talk about in the group chat?
Everybody,
Everybody and
So
everything.
what is Reset?
Reset is the project. Reset was done after the show. Reset was done.
Why the title Reset?
Reset because it was a restart of everything. Reset in confidence, reset in music, reset in my motherhood, reset in my career. It just had to be a reset. It was a reset of my mind. It was a reset of my time, everything. Like literally, because doing the show, so much about you has to change overnight.
Yeah.
Because the expectation is now people do know you, so they expect like this fancy, you know, cars. They expect. I was getting my daughter from the bus stop, and the lady was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, getting my daughter."
Right. Can I get my daughter now?
Please, can I get my baby now?
Why are you questioning me?
Okay. Look, and then I be trying not to get rude. So I be like, here we go. Okay,
Everybody's watching now.
Everybody's watching now, so love to be.
So life has changed since the show.
Life has changed tremendously. It automatically turned into like success, like almost overnight.
Right.
And I don't want to put it like that because success really doesn't happen overnight. But if
That's why I say it's a long ass
it's
night.
a long night because even before the auditions, my car broke down. So I had to borrow my neighbor's car even to get to the auditions, and I was 30 minutes late. So it was a lot of things that was like trying to stop it from happening. So when you get to where you're going in this moment, you just got to move forward. And it was a beautiful experience. I enjoyed it.
And we'll continue to move forward with you, though.
Thank you.
You know what I'm
appreciate
saying?
you guys.
And it was a pleasure to have you in the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Like we really wanted to meet you. You know what I'm saying? And thank you because you were scheduled before. and you came back, and so thank you for coming back as well.
Please.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
And make sure you come and see us again, though.
Absolutely.
Don't forget about
Well,
us.
no, because we hear that all the time. We
Do you
hear
feel
people.
pressure to keep your hairdo, your signature hairdo?
No, I don't want to change it because they tell me to. They be like, so
really?
it's not even pressure. It's like the more they tell me don't change, the more they ask me to change it. I'm like, no, I can't change. I can't change.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you gotta almost expect it. Okay. That's it.
Hey, man, when you and Teyana Taylor, when y'all did y'all performance, did people tell y'all look like sisters?
Yo, like
You guys have a lot of
we almost
resemblance.
like it was almost scary. We sound alike. And I'm like talking, she's talking. I'm like, yo, I'm just gonna be quiet.
Like even like
Like
some of the
similar personalities,
mannerisms.
too.
Yo, it was like so much personality in the room, even down to
And
baby
she's
Junie.
strong.
Junie has
Very strong.
personality.
She's
so-
strong too. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
it's like
You-
two strong,
like when you
three
come
of
in,
them.
you know you strong. You ain't falling
Yes.
for the okie doke.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying? You could tell that it's been a long road. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like, and you could
long-lost sisters.
So man,
You know what was crazy? Like when she came in, you could tell she was already prepared to like. She came in with strength. Like if this is whack, I'm going to tell you.
right.
Because she didn't hear
That's
my rap.
her.
She didn't hear my
Okay.
rap. So
Okay.
she comes in and it's a slow walk look around. It's like, all right. And she's ready to get into it. All right, so let me know what you got. So she's getting into it. She does her part, blase blah. It's like, but you know how you do your part with the notion of still waiting on somebody else. You
Yeah.
want to hear
Right.
what they have.
Yeah.
Because in this moment, if it's not good enough, you could tell she was prepared to walk out. Even the baby was prepared to leave.
Right, yeah,
She's
yeah.
like, we leaving. Prepared
Let's go,
to
Mom.
leave.
She's
Get
Okay?
out of here.
Literally. So like, man, my part comes up and I start rapping and she's bobbing her head. She's like, okay. I'm hitting on certain points. Because my overall goal was to bring detail to what she was already talking about. So if you hear Rose in Harlem, she was
Yeah.
already giving
So good.
a certain story that I just wanted to give details of my perception of that story on how I took it as a listener, because I was already a fan first, and then how I just translated into a feature.
And she has to be careful about who she aligning herself with too.
Absolutely.
It ain't about a TV show. It ain't about a check.
Absolutely.
It ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, you got to make sure that you are bringing, the
Yeah.
people that align in your energy. And I will honestly say, when I did my part, she said, all right.
Yeah.
I said, man. I said, you like it? She said, man. She said, you on to something. You on to something. So when I got the okay from her, that's when I just started loosening up. And I'm like, all right, let's get into it. Now it just turns into rehearsal. My whole thing was just making sure on this record, like, it sounds like an original song. I still want that feature done. I'm
Man.
like, I need to get that feature out.
I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Go
though.
ahead.
And
Thank
you
you,
want good people to continue to win.
I want good
You know what I'm
people to
saying?
continue
So
to
we
win.
wish you nothing but great energy, my friend.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming into the neighborhood.
Thank you. I appreciate you
London
guys.
being the neighborhood, man. Big boys
Big
neighborhood.
boy.
That's what I'm talking about.